I like to give people like 5 minutes to jump on, and then we will get started. So if you guys did not see in your email or have a chance to pull up the recipes, you can search for all of them on the Everyday Well Eats database. And they're all, I looked through a bunch of the Thanksgiving recipes in the database, and these were ones that were all super easy. So I was excited to work on them. All right, so we'll get started. My name is Marcia Smart, for any of you who have not been in any of my cooking classes. And I am the owner of Smart in the Kitchen and Smart in the Kitchen School. And I love teaching, and I love teaching you all my tricks from cooking school and food writing and recipe developing so that it can be easier for you at home. So this class is all about some easy and healthy Thanksgiving sides. And all of these recipes I got from the Everyday Well Eats database from Memorial Hermann. And if you guys have not clicked around through there and searched through those recipes, I highly recommend it because I've had fun finding some new ideas in there. They're all dietitian approved, super like fresh and seasonal and healthy. But what I did to find these is you can search by holiday. So you can put in Thanksgiving and just look through whatever comes up, or say you just need like one more Thanksgiving side, and you can put Thanksgiving and then narrow it down to sides and see what comes up. So what we are making, which I got to pick from the hundreds of recipes in the database, are garlic chive mashed potatoes, which my family's super excited about. A really yummy honey roasted delicata squash, and I'll walk you through all of the ingredients once we start each recipe. And then shaved Brussels sprouts tossed raw in a salad, which is one of my favorite ways to eat them. So I'm super excited about that. So I think that we will jump in. First things first, I have my water boiling behind me, and I peeled the potatoes. I wasn't super picky about like getting all of the skin off of the potatoes, because when you're using Yukon Golds, the color of the skin is very close to the color of the potatoes. So if you have a little bit on there, don't worry about it. You can also leave them on if you like that texture and to make it easier for yourself. I love doing mashed potatoes with Yukon Golds. I know there are people who prefer russet potatoes, like baking potatoes. So you could totally substitute russets for this recipe. I am slicing these in thirds or fourths, depending how big the potatoes are, because it will just help them to cook faster. So we will put these in. I have some salted water going behind me, and we'll just kind of get them soft, get everything else ready for our mashed potato recipe. And I'm going to talk you guys through some different techniques to get your potatoes mashed. There are 3 different things you can do. And I'll tell you my favorite way, my mom's favorite way, and the way that I learned how to make these in cooking school. So they're all 3 different, and you can choose your own adventure. Okay, these are going in. The other thing to let you guys know, the recipe calls for 3 pounds. This is just shy of 3 pounds, but that's okay. We're gonna use the same amount of ingredients anyway. All right. Those are going in. You guys might see my chicken, the chicken behind me, which is what I'm really feeding my family for dinner, because I told them we're having a mini Thanksgiving, because I'm going to throw in a roast chicken. All I'm doing is salting the skin, putting some cut lemon inside, and roasting it at 450 later in a cast iron pan. So it's a very simple recipe that you could make to go along with these if you wanted to do like a Friendsgiving dinner and not deal with a turkey. Okay, so the potatoes are in the boiling water. It's gonna take them about 10 minutes or so to cook, maybe 15 minutes. So I'm gonna set my bowl aside. I have buttermilk at the ready to mix in with our potatoes. And these are garlic chives from my garden. This is a little less, the recipe calls for half a cup of chives, which I thought was a lot. You can do that. Garlic chives are a little bit stronger than regular chives. And they do have that garlic flavor, which is fun because it's almost like a garlic mashed potato. If you, for some reason, can't find chives at the store, you could use a leek and just wash it well and saute it first. So you'll want to saute it in some olive oil or some butter just to soften it, and slice it thin, and then you can mix that with your potatoes. So while those are cooking, we're going to move on to prep our delicata squash. This is one of my absolute favorite squash in winter to cook, because if you are a lazy or busy cook, the amazing news is you don't need to peel it. You just need to wash it, which I love. My sister and I always joke that I am really at heart a lazy cook, because I like any steps that make things go faster. Really, that's because I want people to get cooking more. And I think if you take out all the extra fluff, it's just more likely that people are going to cook after a long day of working and momming and, being a human being. Sometimes you're just tired and you need tricks up your sleeve. So I'm going to show you everything that's in here. I have some raw honey from Texas, this Round Rock honey that I love, a couple shallots. I'm doing a half recipe of this because it calls for a lot, because it's a Thanksgiving side dish to feed 12. So I'm just making a half recipe tonight. So I have my 2 delicata squash that I'm going to show you how to prep. And then I have a sheet pan with parchment paper, just so that the cleanup is easier. We also have a couple shallots here, and where is my apple cider vinegar? Right here. And I'm just using good old fashioned Bragg's. You can use whatever type of apple cider vinegar you want. And I have some Diamond Crystal kosher salt here to season with, which is my favorite type of kosher salt. I also have some Maldon salt for finishing, roasted pepper, and good extra virgin olive oil. So you guys can find this recipe on the site also. I'm moving the recipe out of the way, and we're going to prep all of this, moving my potato bowl. We'll bring it back in a minute. So when I'm prepping the delicata, I like to cut off both ends. You really don't have to. And then we're going to cut this in half. So cut it in half. Use the tip of your knife to cut into it. And then we're going to use a spoon to scoop out the seeds. But you do not need to cut off the skin, which is amazing because it saves you a lot of time and energy. So this can just go in your compost or wherever. And then this just gets sliced and it's ready to go, and it's delicious. I like to cut everything on a flat surface. So I'm putting that cut side down. I'm going to get this one prepped. And then our next one. And in this recipe, it calls for finishing the platter once it's cooked with pomegranate seeds, which I love this time of year because it adds such a great pop of color and texture. You could also add, if you didn't want to add the pomegranate seeds here, you could add them to the salad that we're making tonight, which I love the combination of pomegranate seeds and Brussels sprouts in a salad. So you can really do either one. All right, this is getting, it was a little unwieldy. Okay, it might be time. I'll tell you guys, the best way to make these easy to cut is to have a sharp knife. So if you have never sharpened your knives, be sure to get them sharpened. It makes such a difference. It's actually safer to cut with a sharp knife than a dull knife because you're really like not working at it to get everything cut. Okay, we're gonna cut these in slices, and really you just want the slices to be even. Mine are about 1/2 inch thick. You could do them anywhere from 1/2 inch to 1 inch would be great. If they're too thin, they'll cook really fast. and you don't want that. Okay, so we're gonna get these all on our sheet pan. We're gonna toss them with some extra virgin olive oil and some salt and pepper. And this is also, you guys, this time of year, an amazing side dish. All you have to do is this part. This is so good on its own. Just roast up some delicata squash with salt, pepper, and extra virgin olive oil, and you're like so happy. They're pretty. You could also add to the sheet pan like some paprika or little spice mix of cumin, paprika, and garlic powder and onion powder, but you don't need to. Okay, and then sometimes I like to add a drained can of garbanzo beans with these because they get nice and crispy with the delicata. But that is just an idea for another side dish down the road. Okay, these are ready to roll. I am putting them on my sheet pan. So if you made a full recipe of this, you would need at least 2 of these. This is a half sheet pan because you'd want to be able to really spread them out and not have them overlapping. So that's the one thing you want to take away is you don't want these overlapping. I have them kind of in a pile right now because I'm going to add my extra virgin olive oil and my salt, and then I'm just going to kind of toss them out. Okay, we have our kosher salt and some pepper. And kosher salt, because it's flaky, it might seem like you're using more than you would with table salt, but it's really a better quality salt and it has more volume to it because it's flaky. So sometimes you need a little bit more than you would with table salt. And I really don't use regular table salt. I only use kosher salt in my cooking, or sea salt, which I love. Good sea salts are such a fun thing to like bring back from a trip, wherever you are, and just have a memento of where you were. So this looks so pretty already. It looks very Thanksgiving to me. Nothing is overlapped. It's going in the oven. And I'm going to add the shallots, but I'm going to pop this in the oven while I'm cutting the shallots just to get it kind of started and off of my sheet pan. Okay, so we have our couple shallots that we're adding. Just to show you guys before I get started, I love teaching people that you want to leave the root attached and cut off the top because the root is like the glue that keeps this together. And then I'm going to cut it in half and peel it. I cut it in half from top to bottom through the root so that it doesn't like come apart and roll all over your cutting board. So we're gonna get these peeled, and those of you who, flying shallot, those of you who have taken lots of classes with me have heard that over and over again. You want a flat surface to cut with. It's the trick. It's the knife skill insider secret. Okay, we're gonna do another one. Get this sliced and on our sheet pan. Sometimes with shallots, there's like 2 shallots attached. So I separated those so that I could cut them in half. Okay, so after that, this is gonna roast for a while to soften, about 30 minutes, but I am going to turn on my convection. If you have convection, you can pop it on because it'll make this just cook a little faster. You don't need to change the temperature, just get your convection on. And let me know, I'm curious if any of you are cooking along tonight or if you're just watching and you're gonna make these later. So let me know. I'm gonna get these sliced and added. Okay, so in this recipe, you're gonna add the honey and the vinegar closer to the end because you don't wanna add anything with sugar like honey is going to caramelize and potentially burn. So we're adding it almost more like a finishing glaze at the end. So we'll throw these guys on in a second and then we're good to go. This little baby one, the skin is like really happily attached. Okay. Last one. I am throwing these on the sheet pan and kind of sprinkling them all around our delicata. You could have done this before you put them in. I just wanted to get my sheet pan out of the way so I could talk to you guys and cut right in front of the camera. Okay. And really, on Thanksgiving, when you're cooking and you have a lot of things in the oven, you want to try to open the oven as little as possible, because every time you're opening the oven, you are bringing that temperature up and down. So I'm going to see if there's any questions that I need to answer yet. Let's see. Okay, watching, not cooking. Okay, perfect. So let me know as we're going. I'll check the Q&A every once in a while, put in any questions, and we will get to them. So I'm going to put my apple cider vinegar and my honey aside, and we'll add those later. And honestly, it calls for half a recipe like I'm doing tonight, it would be 1/4 of a cup of honey and cider. I'm just gonna like toss it up with a spatula at the end and let it just, cover those squash. Don't worry so much about having the exact measurement, just like you can toss it up on the sheet pan. Okay, so next is our salad, which I'm so excited about. And I love salad with shaved Brussels sprouts. I have like 3 on my website, which is Smart in the Kitchen. One of the first recipes that went on there, I'm grabbing my food processor, was a kale and Brussels sprout salad. That's one of my favorites still. The reason I like it is that it almost ends up being like a slaw that soaks up all that dressing. So the other amazing thing, why will this not plug in? Okay, there we go. The other amazing thing about doing a salad with Brussels sprouts is that it's not going to wilt if you make it for Thanksgiving and it sits aside. Okay, so I do want to trim these, and I'm going to talk you through the rest of this recipe. I'm grabbing ingredients over here that I'm going to show you guys. So, one second. And my Brussels sprouts got stuck to my sheet pan. Okay. So after we shave all the Brussels sprouts in the food processor, we're going to make a delicious dressing right in the bowl of our salad bowl, in the base of our salad bowl, because there's no reason to make it in another bowl and have one more dish to wash for Thanksgiving. So we have red pepper flakes, lemon, we have olive oil, salt and pepper, and we're adding some red onion half moons. This recipe also calls for hazelnuts, chopped hazelnuts, or you could add any nut that you want or leave them out if you have a nut allergy in your family, obviously. So first things first, guys, you have to bear with me. Whenever I do a class on camera right here, it's like I end up with the smallest prep space to work with because all of my ingredients take over. Okay, first things first, I'm trimming the end off the Brussels sprouts and throwing these in. So you just want to get off that tough end. The only reason I cut them in half is to get them started a little bit. Because if not, you'll end up with the heart of the Brussels sprout not pureeing. So I wanted to show you guys how easy this is to prep from start to finish. If you don't have a food processor, you can still make this. You can shave these on a mandolin. You can cut them very thin with a knife. But the amazing thing about a food processor is it makes this process so fast and easy. I have so many friends that tell me that they like registered for a food processor for their wedding and never used it for like 15 years and then finally gave it away. And I'm always like, no, there are so many amazing things you can do with a food processor. So I should maybe do a blog post just about that. Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about Brussels sprouts and how to use them for Thanksgiving because they're in season, they're delicious, they're so good for you. If you didn't want to do a raw Brussels sprout salad, which I promise you, try it because it doesn't taste cabbagey. It soaks up the flavor of the dressing and tastes just like what you're adding to it. It's really fresh and green and delicious. You could also shave all of your Brussels sprouts like this and saute them in a pan with pancetta and shallots and add like a little grainy mustard and olive oil and salt. It would be delicious. My family just loves balsamic roasted Brussels sprouts where we cut the Brussels sprouts in half, roast them cut side down, and then I do a balsamic and honey glaze that gets added at the end. And if any of you want any of these other recipes I'm mentioning on the fly, you can email me or DM me on Instagram and I will get those to you. Okay, so we have our last couple Brussels that we're going to add. And I apologize because I don't think it gets as loud on Zoom. I think they like drown out the noise, but I'm always worried that this is like an annoying sound when I turn on the food processor. Okay, here we go. Okay, done. It's like magic. It is like this amazing slaw that's going to soak up all of the dressing. So I'm going to move this aside over here and I'm grabbing my nuts that we're going to add. And like I said, you guys, if you don't have hazelnuts and you want to use up something you already have, I think this would be absolutely delicious with pecans, almond slices or almond slivers, pistachios, or hazelnuts. So let me grab those. Okay, you guys have to forgive me because I could not find them at first, but they were in there. I keep all of my nuts in my freezer because in Houston, where it's really hot, you want those in a cool place to store, not in your pantry because the oils will make them go bad faster. So the other thing I thought I could show you guys is pine nuts. I forgot to mention those would be delicious in this salad. Or in the recipe that I have on my website, I use Marcona almonds. So you could use raw almonds also. No. Okay, so let's put these in a pan and get them a little toasted. And no matter what a recipe says, I like to toast these in a pan because if they're in the oven, it's out of sight, out of mind. And it's really like more likely that you're gonna burn them. The other thing about hazelnuts that I don't always love dealing with, to be honest, is that you have to rub them with a towel to get the skin off after they've toasted because the skin is kind of bitter. So just be aware of that. I am going to test our potatoes really quickly and see how they are. Okay. The potatoes are perfect. So I'm going to take them out and put them in our bowl and finish that recipe. You guys, if you hear jingling behind me, it's my dog's collar. He's trying to see if he can get any food treats. So just ignore that sound. Sorry about it. It's okay. You can leave them. Okay. I'm leaving my water in the pot. And I'm just using a little slotted spoon to take all of the potatoes out so that I don't have to deal with the water right now. but you could also strain them. All right. The other thing is, you guys, you can save that starchy potato water and use it to kind of thin out your gravy if you need a little bit of thinning and you've run out of stock. So you could save it on Thanksgiving until your gravy is totally finished. So we want to complete this while it's hot. This is low-fat buttermilk, and there's no butter in this recipe. It's just the buttermilk that thins this out, and I love that kind of bitter flavor of buttermilk. I love adding it to my mashed potatoes. I'm going to slice my garlic chives, and I'm going to tell you some different ways that you can make your mashed potatoes. So my mom loves to make mashed potatoes with an old school hand mixer. And I was always taught in cooking school that that's a no-no because it can make your mashed potatoes a little gummy, but that's really more likely if you're using baking potatoes. If you're using a waxy potato, like a russet, it's okay to use a hand mixer. It will make them fluffy and delicious. My kids love my mom's mashed potatoes, so I don't think anyone thinks that they turn out gummy, and she uses baking potatoes. So take from that what you will. In cooking school, we had to use a food mill, which is a really big contraption with a base that kind of rotates at the bottom, and it gives you really, really smooth mashed potatoes. This is called a ricer, and it is a sort of a shortcut food mill. So this is what I like using. And then I just kind of use, you can just do this in batches. This is your workout. You squeeze it through. It's like those old school Play-Doh, toys that you used to use to squeeze your Play-Doh when you were little. At least I had one of those, and I thought it was totally, totally satisfying. So I'm putting this in. And while these don't have butter in them, you can add butter if you want. A little butter would be delicious. And if you don't have buttermilk or you can't find it at the store, you can always make buttermilk by taking half a lemon and adding it to a cup of milk. So any kind of milk, skim milk, low fat, 2% whole. And in cooking classes, when people have asked me how to make mashed potatoes, dairy-free, what I have always recommended is, instead of using a nut milk, which has a really strong flavor, use like chicken stock or vegetable stock to thin out your mashed potatoes. These are smelling so good. I'm going to see if I have any more potatoes left in here. This is like a favorite, guys. I'm so excited. And one of the best parts of Thanksgiving. So people always ask me if you can make these ahead if you have a big group, and you can. I just prefer them made right before. I love the chaos of Thanksgiving. I love everyone cooking together. And for my family and my extended family, that's part of the fun. Now I'm just getting all of the potatoes off of my ricer, getting them in the bowl. So I really prefer to do it right before. I think they taste a lot better. But you can do these the day ahead. Put them in a casserole dish, cover them, store them in the fridge, and then just warm them up the next day. And you might want to add just a little pat of butter at that point to kind of moisten them. So now that this is all riced, I'm adding my second half cup of buttermilk, because we've only added half a cup so far. And I'm going to use my hand masher, which is, you could have also just used this to kind of bring these together. Oh my gosh, we have to get our salt in here. Potatoes need salt. They're like a blank canvas, and you really need to add that salt. Okay, you guys, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of excited to taste these. And let's see what we think. If I would add anything else. No, they're delicious. I might add on my plate a little bit of Maldon sea salt. There's some potato that came out, but that's it. And if you wanted to thin these out anymore, you could, but I think they're absolutely delicious. And if you want to thin them out more, just add a little bit more buttermilk. So these are done. Okay, I'm peeking at our squash before I make the Brussels sprout salad, which is super simple, just to make sure I'm not over cooking those. Okay, let's see. I still need more time. I cranked up the heat on the squash to 450 so that I could be sure to show those to you before the end of the class. And of course, while I am notorious in my family, the person that went to cooking school for burning nuts and bread, it happens to me so often. I got one side of my Brussels sprouts very toasty, but I think with the skin coming off, it will be fine. I'm gonna put them in this towel to cool so that I can use it to rub the skin off, and I'll show you guys that when we come to it. So I want to get them out of the pan. And I set those aside. Okay, so now let's make our salad dressing right in our bowl. And what we need to add is some lemon zest. And I like to use a microplane for this. And you just want the like bright yellow part of the lemon zested, not the white. Sometimes if you're using a microplaner, it kind of sticks to the underside. So after I do this, I'll show you what I do to make sure it goes in the bowl. Ah, I lost it. Okay, just tap it and it'll all fall into the bowl. Okay, I'm gonna cut this in half and make sure I wash my knife. All right, the nuts smell amazing. So in with my lemon juice, I'm gonna add some red pepper flakes, which is gonna give a really delicious, just kind of bit of spice to this. So we will add and I'm gonna add the whole lemon. You have measurements in your recipe, but just do the dressing to taste. If you want it more acidic, then add more lemon juice. If you want it less acidic and more mellow, add more of the olive oil to mellow it out. So now that those two things are in there, I'm grabbing some kosher salt. This is going to be so yummy. I'm going to mix that together, a little pepper, and our olive oil. So whatever kind of olive oil you use, just make sure it's a good extra virgin olive oil. So I want to get this started. And another thing I think would be delicious in this dressing is some mustard. So if you wanted to add some grainy mustard or some Dijon mustard, I think that would be amazing. Okay, so we have a really, really bright and fresh dressing. I'm adding our Brussels sprouts right in here. I saw one that didn't get cut up, so I took it out. Okay. There is a slicer attachment for your food processor that you could use if you want, but I always just pulse them like this to keep them, to keep it easy. And then I love when they're pureed like this, how they soak up all of the dressing. Okay, one of the tips I love to tell people that I learned, that is already looking really yummy, that I learned in cooking school that our chef instructor used to always tell us is you have to taste everything before you serve it. So even though we have everything kind of rolling in there, we're gonna taste it and see if we want more lemon, more spice, more olive oil, and correct the flavor to how your palate wants it before you serve it. So you're really gonna think when you're tasting it and think about the flavor profile and adjust if you want it to change. A recipe is just a blueprint, and then you can tweak it and make it work for you. So one thing I want to say, you guys, again, we're doing the half cut. This is just like I did the shallot to show you guys, but it's a bigger version. It's a red onion. We're going to cut this really thin. The thinner, the better, because you don't want that big chunk of red onion when you take a bite of the salad. The other thing I was going to tell you guys is if you wanted to sort of slightly pickle the red onions in the lemon juice for this recipe before you add everything, you could cut them thin and let them just soak in the lemon juice in the base of your bowl, and it would soften that raw flavor of the red onions. That will happen naturally as they sit in a salad, but it'll just take longer. So I think that would be a fun thing to do, to sort of marinate the red onions before you add them. They add such really beautiful flavor and color. Okay, so we're adding some of our pomegranate seeds. I just bought them already, like out of the pomegranate. These are just the arils, and for me, this would be how I did it on Thanksgiving. I do not want to deal with, oh my gosh, I just did that on accident. Those are supposed to go on the Delicata squash, but you guys can see, I think it was subconscious because I really wanted them to go in the salad, and I have more left over to put in the squash. But I love the like pop of red that they add in the salad. Okay, so let's give this a little taste and see what we think. It's so good. I'm adding a tiny bit of salt because it really didn't have much salt, and I'm giving it another stir. And then I'm going to chop the hazelnuts and add those, and this is it. You can make this a couple hours ahead, which is amazing, and cross it off your list. Okay, let's see how our hazelnuts did. I'm going to have to take some out that sat in the pan for too long. Okay, so what I'm doing, I have them in this towel. And my towels, you guys, I buy them at the restaurant supply store. They're flour sack towels. I don't use fancy towels when I'm like cooking because I really use them a lot. Oh boy, I might not be able to use all of these. I got distracted. Some of them are fine. They're like toasted with a little dark spot, and some look like that. Okay, let's see. Let's salvage what we can, and I'll make another batch later to add to our salad. So just have a towel that you don't care about, because it will, when you're doing that with the hazelnuts to get the skin off, it will add some kind of skin and brown color to whatever towel you're using. And you can just roughly chop these, just go back and forth with your knife, keep the tip on your board, and get those nice and chopped. Okay, I'm adding those guys, and then I'll probably toast more later. So that would be a very simple salad to make for Thanksgiving. The other thing you could do to make it sort of go farther is use some lacinato kale or any type of kale. Take it off the stem and slice it thin and add some kale to this. And it would really serve a crowd. It would be delicious. Okay, I'm peeking at our Delicata Squash, but before that, I'm just gonna mix together the ingredients for the glaze because I think I can throw this on at this point. So remember, I made a half recipe of this. So I was just gonna add this directly to the pan, but as long as we have the time, I'm gonna mix it in my measuring cup. And it's equal amounts of honey and apple cider vinegar at the end. And it's gonna create a really delicious glaze that is just gonna coat the squash. I have a recipe on my website for honey roasted root vegetables. And I think I did that with Memorial Hermann for a Thanksgiving ebook once. And if you guys don't have that, I'll see if we can find the link to that so you can sign up for it. But there are some great recipes in there too. So this is just the apple cider vinegar and the honey. I'm gonna pour it all over the Delicata squash and shut the oven door. I'm just showing you guys, I decided to show you what this looks like so far. The shallots are like a little brown and it kind of sizzles when it hits the pan, which is awesome because it means that the vinegar is already reducing and you can smell that like vinegar, the alcohol burning off in the vinegar. All right. So that is going back in. And when that comes out, all you do is finish it with some more of these pomegranate seeds. And that's it. It's so simple. You add some fresh mint or herbs. I also thought wanted to show you guys, these are from my garden. And you could easily add a little bit of sage at the end of the cooking of the squash and let it get nice and crispy on the pan, which is what I'm planning to do. So I'm taking the liberty to make one little tweak to the recipe because I just thought I love nothing more than crispy sage. It just screams Thanksgiving to me. So I'm taking a bunch of leaves off. I have them all facing the same direction. We're gonna do a chiffonade, which means we're just gonna roll it up like a cigar. And then I'm going to wipe off my knife, start at the top and just do a very thin ribbon cut. And then I'm gonna throw all of this. You also could just tear it if you don't wanna deal with this. You could roughly tear it. I don't want the stems and add it to the sheet pan. So my last step for the squash is I'm throwing this sage on top. Oh my gosh, it looks so good. Okay, you guys, the last 2 seconds that that's cooking, it's really ready. It's just heating up. I'm gonna see if there were any other questions that I missed. Yay. Okay, so let me know if you guys have any other questions. The other thing I will tell you that's amazing about the Delicata squash is that it's delicious at room temperature. So if you also wanted to make that ahead and you needed oven space for something else, it can sit out at room temperature or it can go in a warming drawer. And really, I tell people that you don't really need a warming drawer as long as you have a 200-degree oven. So when your turkey comes out to rest, you can put your veggies back in. So, and I think someone was asking, there will be a recording that goes out for this with, all the info included. And like I said, if you guys have any other Thanksgiving questions, please reach out to me. And I'm going to show you everything one last time. So this is our mashed potatoes. They kind of soaked up some of the buttermilk. And so if I wanted to add a little bit more buttermilk at this point to smooth them out, what I would do is pour some of the buttermilk into a glass container and microwave it for a second to warm it so that it doesn't hit this cold and bring the temperature down. So you can always add more if you feel like you want it less, like you want it a little bit smoother, but these were delicious. Okay, this is our delicious salad with the Brussels sprouts, shaved, red onions, hazelnuts. Don't teach a cooking class and turn your back on the hazelnuts and burn them like I did. And then I added some pomegranate seeds to this too. This is a really simple recipe that would be delicious on any weeknight, you guys. This is a delicious salad. Just lemon juice, some red pepper flakes. I might add some Maldon to the end, to my serving when it's on my plate. And I'm gonna grab the Delicata Squash. Okay, it is looking delicious. I would put this just on a platter with some extra sage in the corner. And it's just like nice and soft. It smells super sweet. And then my dog is barking. And then finish it off at the end with these delicious pops of color. These are just like the jewels of Thanksgiving. Pomegranate seeds just make everything pop and look beautiful. So I hope you guys enjoyed these. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for our community in Houston, the wonderful healthcare we have, cooking with friends, and healthy food. So thank you guys for having me. Oh, perfect. I'm so glad that link is in there. Thank you all. Come visit us at Smart in the Kitchen and smartinthekitchenschool.com.